The Bucks just beat the Atlanta Hawks in Game 6, which means we are going to be getting Bucks versus Suns in the finals. And to me personally, this is pretty much the perfect finals matchup going into this year's playoffs. Now, we didn't exactly get to this matchup in a way that I wanted, just with how many injuries there have been. But at the end of the day, I wanted a Bucks-Suns finals really above everything else. I was rooting for the Nuggets the most in the playoffs, but at the same time, I knew they wouldn't be as fun to watch without Jamal Murray, so I wanted Suns Bucks. So even though we got here weirdly, I'm happy that we got here. So let's talk about this matchup. Bucks versus Suns, who will win? Let's talk about it. Before I continue on with this video, about half of the people that watch these videos are not subscribed, so if you fall into that 50%, then please subscribe. I'm trying to hit 200K on this channel by the end of the year, so I would much appreciate it. Also, drop a like on this video. It only takes 1 second and makes a massive difference. And real quick, if you want to get my reaction to every finals game this year, except for maybe Game 3 that I bought tickets to, and I don't know. It depends if Giannis plays, if I'm going to go or not, but I'll be doing post-game recaps for every finals game, so go check out my second channel where I am doing those recaps. With that out of the way though, let's get on with the video. So first of all, I have to address the 7-foot Greek elephant in the room. I just mentioned it a second ago, but Giannis's health is still a little bit in question. Now, it seems based on reports that he's definitely going to play in the finals at some point, like pretty much no question about that. It's just a matter of actually when. There's a lot of reports that suggest he'll be good to go from Game 1, some not so optimistic. Ultimately, I am just going to have to do what I did for my Clippers versus Suns series, where basically I have to just like predict the injury, which is a very difficult thing to do, but I just need to set like a basis for the prediction. So for this series, I'm going to assume Giannis misses the first 2 games, and then he's about 85 to 90% from Game 3 on to whatever amount of games the series goes. That, I think, is being a little bit conservative, honestly, because there's a real chance he's there from Game 1, but I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't over-assuming, and I feel like the reports saying that he's going to be good to go from Game 1 are a little bit too good to be true. Could very well be wrong about that, but at least that's the impression I've got thus far. So we're just going to assume Giannis does not play the first 2 games of the series, and with that being the case, the question becomes, is there a chance in hell that the Bucks take a game off of the Phoenix home court in their first 2 games? Well, I would lean towards no, however, I don't think it's as improbable as some might make it out to be. If we got another one of those like really on fire Chris Middleton games that we've had 3 of thus far in this playoffs, if we got something like that, Brook Lopez was going inside, maybe Bobby Portis brought in some contributions, something like that. If Devin Booker had a poor performance on the Sun side of things, because he's been inconsistent ever since he had the nose injury, you know, it's not impossible for even a team with really good circumstances and one with bad circumstances for things to just swing one way, and then the team with good circumstances still ends up losing. So there's a possibility that that happens. That being said, I would definitely bet on an 0-2 start if Giannis does not play the first 2 games. So I'm going to assume that's how this series starts. But Giannis back from Game 3 and pretty much healthy from there. What happens after that? Well, let's talk matchups. First of all, of course, we have to talk about how the Suns stop Giannis, because that's the primary prerogative for them. Interestingly enough, Jay Crowder was a huge foundational defensive piece against Giannis in the wall defense that the Heat played in 2020. Now he's on the Phoenix Suns in 2021, and I could actually see him being the primary matchup once again. You might think he's too small, but he was also the primary matchup on Anthony Davis in the first round. So clearly he is adept at guarding bigger players, and he did it very well against Giannis previously. Now, with that defense, similar to what the Heat did last year, I think you try and replicate that by Ayton essentially being in the Bam Adebayo role, where he's this big, strong, versatile defender who can move his feet really well, be able to bring help defense when possible, while also not leaving just wide open opportunities. That being said, I'm sure Brook Lopez will get a couple of corner threes out of this situation. I think Giannis this year has proven that he's better against defensive schemes like that, but at the same time, it's definitely definitely something that can serve to slow him down. Hell, even the Nets did like some minor version of it, and that gave Giannis problems when it seemed like Giannis should average 45 for that series. So I do have some concerns there on the Bucks side of things, especially being that the Suns defense has been pretty damn consistent throughout this year's playoffs, and just assuming that they can adapt that system and they have the personnel to do it well, I could definitely see some Giannis struggle in this series. For their perimeter guys, Mikal Bridges as well as Torrey Craig are going to get the Chris Middleton matchup for probably all of the minutes. I can't imagine there's going to be much else on Chris Middleton. And then Jrue Holiday is going to be guarded by Chris Paul. That should be a dogfight. That'll be fun to watch, especially being that both of those point guards, I believe, were rumored for both of those teams. I know for a fact Chris Paul was rumored for the Bucks, so I think it's very interesting that the point guard that they chose over Chris Paul is on the Bucks, and they're going to be matching up. That's just interesting. But now let's talk about how the Bucks defend the Suns. First thing we have to address is drop coverage. We saw Chris Paul absolutely kill Nikola Jokic with that in the second round. We saw Devin Booker kill Andre Drummond with that in the first round, though they did get better as the series progressed until game 6 when he had like 40 plus. And even Zubac got a decent amount in that Clippers series, so you really can't play drop coverage against these guys or you're gonna get burned, as that happened in the first 3 rounds. Book and CP3 are some of the best mid-range shooters in the league, so if you give them space for the pull-up, it's gonna go in at a frequent enough rate that it's an efficient shot. So I'm once again going to suggest that Brook Lopez doesn't play a crazy amount of minutes and that they have Giannis run the small ball 5 with PJ Tucker at the 4. Now, I will say that Brook has been better in other areas and better on drop coverage as of late, so I don't think he's as much of a weakness as I previously acted like he was. However, still definitely a weakness, and especially in the Nets series, we saw that when the Bucks went small, that's when they were at their best. They ended up closing out the Nets in one of those games just simply because in the last 5 minutes they went small and suddenly the momentum completely shifted from there. So small ball Bucks, and not even really small ball because Giannis is 6'11", but Giannis at center, essentially, that's what should be primarily what they do. Though at the same time, Chris Middleton and Jrue Holiday, who will be guarding the Suns guards, will need to be sure to do a good job of fighting around the screen. Drop coverage is not entirely on the big man, as I've made the mistake of overly criticizing Brook Lopez for. Jrue Holiday and Middleton need to make sure that they aren't switching at least the least amount of possible so that Lopez isn't just left on an island. So definitely try and do that, but at the same time, small ball Giannis at center, or whatever you would define it as, would be the best thing, as we saw in that Nets series, that especially late in games when they went to those small ball lineups, that's when the Bucks were at their best. So I don't know why you always wait so long to do that, Mike Budenholzer, but just do that as much as you can, please. Other than that, defensively, you have to make sure to stick to their wing players. The Suns' offense is relatively simple for as effective as it is. It's Chris Paul pick and rolls, Devin Booker ISOs, and general scoring, and then DeAndre Ayton's paint presence. And then after that, it's pretty much just Bridges and Crowder spotting up. Bridges will do some stuff off of the dribble here and there, but that's mostly what he brings to the table. And they're not consistent outside shooters, but they're also not so inconsistent that you should dare them to shoot, especially in the case of Jay Crowder. There's been multiple games in this series where he has burned teams because they just didn't respect his outside shot enough. So make sure you're not giving them too many easy opportunities there either. I also think it's worth mentioning that I don't think Brook Lopez in the paint is going to be a huge thing in this series as it was in the Nets series and to close out the Hawks series, especially in game 5. I think he just clogged the paint and really get in Giannis's way, especially if they're trying to do a wall defense. He'd be better off spotting up, though not that I expect DeAndre Ayton to exactly respect Brook that much from outside. Brook is about an average three-point shooter, and I think he'll take that over Giannis getting easy paint opportunities. So Brook is probably going to get quite a good amount of open threes. It's important that he actually hits those threes. We've seen this story before with the Bucks where Giannis is getting just demolished inside the paint, and he kicks it out outside, and the players aren't finishing the plays. So it's important that Brook Lopez hits that three when it comes to him. But assuming that the Suns start off this series 2-0 because of Giannis's absence, assuming that that ends up being what happens, then the Bucks are going to have an uphill battle. Not an impossible one, because going down 0-2 when you don't have home court advantage is not something that's impossible to come back from. It happens really frequently, but it's just definitely not the ideal way to start off a series. You want to take one on the opposing team's home floor. So because of that, and because I am predicting that Giannis doesn't play the entire series, I'm going to say Suns in 7. If Giannis played the entire series and was healthy for pretty much all of it, I would say Bucks in 6, maybe a game in 5, but I would strongly predict 6. But for the most part, I'm really not entirely sure. Of course, obviously, Giannis's health, we don't know what it's going to be until we know what it's going to be. And it's possible the Bucks even win a game without Giannis. I wouldn't bet on it, but it's not impossible. So I really don't have a strong prediction. I think this is a very even matchup, especially if Giannis is going to miss a little bit of time. So I don't actually have a strong prediction here. I know that's kind of anticlimactic, but if Giannis plays, Bucks in 6. If he plays just the last 5 or 4 games or whatever and misses the first 2, then Suns in 6 or 7. Yeah. But either way, I think this is going to be a great series. I'm very excited for this matchup because I love both of these teams. So I look forward to it. Shout out to Rudy for editing this video, but that is the end of this video. Please be sure to like and subscribe for more NBA content like this, and cue the outro music.